So this is not a short video, and if you can't concentrate for more than 60 seconds or a minute, switch it off now, because I'm going to be waffling about the last few days and what's been happening. You're going to have to put up with the noise of the parrot in the background and the crows and the guinea fowl, and the sheep are pretty quiet, so don't worry about them. Anyway, the last few days we've had a situation here with the ward councillor that resigned, and by-election, and the election of a new ward councillor, and so on. And that has been an interesting time and led up to the election the other day, led up to with all sorts of political showmanship, let's put it that way, put it nicely, by all involved, including some of the community. Anyway, it's been an interesting time, and I've used that time, or the opportunities, to have discussions with representatives of various parties, and none of those in general, none of those discussions have led me to change my opinion about politicians. And I've been quite plain about it with all of them that I've spoken to, that I essentially despise them, I detest the system, and I believe that it is to blame for a great deal of what we have to deal with right at the moment. Not that that worries them too much, because they are well trained at what they do, they are well practiced at what they do. The majority of them anyway. Some of them are new to the game and say things that perhaps they shouldn't, or don't think about first. And it's interesting, because it's an indication of their, just as human beings, it's an indication of their inability to be an effective bipedal hominid. I'm not trying to be insulting in any way here. I suppose in some sarcastic manner, trying to inject a small modicum of humor into a very dire situation. As I say, I'm not trying to insult anyone. I think the majority of these people do that by themselves all too well, and they don't need my assistance. Most of those interactions have been fairly peaceful. We have had one or two interactions with one political party, or the representatives of one political party, that have been borderline. They were not, from their perspective, from their side, they weren't managed well, and they could have turned pretty ugly were the people that they were engaging a little less mature than they are. And I would suggest to them, and if any of them watch this, I would suggest to you that you be very careful about how you engage with the public. It doesn't matter what color skin they have, or what church they go to, or what food they eat, or what language they speak. My suggestion to you would be this: if you have no interest in gaining their support, or convincing them that your ideology is in some way better than what they think they have been exposed to, if you have no interest in that, then do not engage with them, because you will come across people that will not react well to threats and insinuation. You would do well to realize that at this stage of your political career. It does bring into question what it is you're trying to achieve. It also brings into the fore one of the points that I've made a good number of times over the last many years, and that is that there's more segregation in this country now than I believe there ever was before. And yes, we've gone through this. We know what the system that was in place was, yeah, it's no good. I get that, okay. But you need to look at what's been done since then and realize that the system that exists now, the racial division that exists now, the antagonistic approach by nearly all involved, and I'm talking about politically now, that that mode of operation is consciously constructed. It's not just something that happens because the people are unhappy. No, it's intentional, and it's a well thought out plan that most, unfortunately, seem to be pretty much unaware of, or ignorant of, or for whatever reason. Let's not worry about the reasons, but people are ignorant to it, and people would do well to take a step back, a big step back, and look at just how they're being programmed to comply with other people's wishes and to precipitate a situation that is not positive in any way for anyone in the long run. You can't force people to like each other. If I speak English, I speak English. I can't change that. Well, I can change that. I have no intention of doing so. I speak English because it's the one language that I can communicate effectively in. Well, I consider effectively. I'm not going to sit here and try and make a video in Zulu or in Afrikaans or Xhosa. Why would I do that? Or French? Why? That would be stupid. My point is this: you can't force people to be together, live together, like each other. You can try. The result is going to be hatred at the end of the day. Because when you tell me that I have to like someone, or when you tell someone else that they have to like me, you have a fundamental problem. It's a fundamental human problem. We are not designed for that type of interaction. Like attracts like. You will find that it's not a racial problem, it's a tribal problem. My tribe is my tribe. It's not your tribe. Maybe some of you are included in it. I don't know. Don't know who's watching this. It's like me wanting to go along and become a bushman. What's that about? Yeah, maybe I want to go and have the experience of being that, or pretending to be that or something. I can't be. And they would know that, as do I. So when you try and start pushing people together, when you start, that's a very loud bird. It's enough now. Thank you. When you start trying to force people to be together and like each other, you will find problems follow. Now, a number of people that I've spoken to over the last few weeks or months now, in fact, are fully cognizant of this. These are the politicians I'm talking about. They're fully cognizant of it. Yet they seem to not do too much about it. It's one of the number of things that they don't do too much about, because I believe that, I think it suits their agenda at the end of the day. It sows confusion, and any confusion in the political landscape can be taken advantage of. So you do well to recognize that, and you probably do already. If you're watching this, I suspect that you are probably one of the small percentage of people that is actually prepared to think honestly about your existence and the situation and that we find ourselves in, individually and collectively. So chances are you're going to think about it anyway, and you are aware of it, but maybe not as consciously as you should be. And perhaps you're not as consciously aware and proactive in terms of what it is you are doing to act in a way that doesn't perpetuate the problem. To the politicians, some of you are well intended. The majority, however, your act is not congruent with what you portray, or what your intention is, rather. And it's not difficult to see that. And it's sad, because that's the system that we have to work with. Unfortunately, that's the thing that has evolved apparently since ancient times. It's the way people have gotten to a point of trying to govern things and make order out of things. But it's far from perfect. It's a long, long way from being okay. Mainly, I think, because it is dependent upon the honesty of men and women. It's dependent upon the honesty of human beings, and that nowadays more than ever. I don't know, maybe it's always been like that. Maybe we just see more of it nowadays because of things like social media. Maybe there's just more exposure to the dishonesty of people and the ego-based nonsense that seems to be the order of the day. Maybe it's always been like that. Maybe we just see more of it because of our exposure. But it does seem like there's more. I don't know. It's not too relevant, actually. But, yeah. So I can ramble on about the political situation. I'm not sure what good it will do, because I'm no longer sure how many people are interested in actually knowing about it, or applying their minds, applying their thinking to it in a conscious manner. You know, I was surprised, and I made a lot of jokes about it, and most of them were quite cynical, as is my nature. I was quite surprised that on the morning of the by-election, there were still people saying, what election? Who's going to vote where? People were saying, oh, can I go and vote here? They weren't even registered to vote. And it indicated a general lack. Well, it indicates two things: a general lack of awareness, knowledge. And that could be caused by a couple of things. Maybe people are so close to the edge and trying to survive continually that they don't have time. They don't have time for it. I don't know. But on the other hand, I think it indicates a lack of desire to be involved in any way. People want to shout the odds afterwards, once things have not gone the way they would like them to, or the way they expect them to go logically, and that's understandable. But people, for whatever reason, are uninvolved to the point that it will be detrimental to them. And I find that concerning. The next chapter in this thing is next year, when there's a national election. What's going to happen then? Because if this type of approach is taken with a municipal by-election, then what happens next year? Is this less important than what happens down the line? And there go the hardy-dars, making lots of noise, chasing the guinea fowl. Right, I'm going to pause this for a moment, grab some coffee, move the bird out of earshot so you don't get deafened by the squawks. All right, part two. Part two-ish. So, rambling on here about politicians. And one of the reasons I've been getting involved with these people and talking to them is because it's about forming relationships, or I believe it's necessary to form relationships with the people that are in the municipality, that are able to do the work, or at least able to see that some of it might get done. Those of you that are with the workings of the municipality will immediately recognize that that's not as straightforward as it seems, and those relationships are pretty complex and very political, and one has to smile and wave, you know, which is not a thing that I have ever done well. I've normally, the majority of my life, I've put the stuff on the table, and there it is. Let's talk about it, and come to some truthful conclusion based on honesty. And often that's not that's not that it is difficult. It's not easy with these political types, and certainly the people that work in the municipality, and because they're motivated by politics, by politicians. They all have some political aspirations. It concerns me that those aspirations are pretty much based on power, greed, ego. That seems to be the motivating factor for many things in this life. Ego. Ego and greed and self-aggrandizement and all of this nonsense. Excuse me. It's not a thing that sits well with me, because I try to avoid it, and that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It just means that that's how I feel about it. So, if your ego is working for you, well, that's great. Perhaps look at it from a different perspective and see if it's working for other people. Anyway, let's not get into the ego discussion. The reason I entertain these discussions with these people is because of wanting to form relationships that will, for the benefit really of the greater community, try, that we can yield some result, some sort of change, some sort of effective improvement. And it's an ongoing thing, of course. I have a fear in the background that I might well turn into one of these things, one of these people, one of these political animals. It is a concern of mine. I have some comfort in the thought that there are enough people that know me well enough to, should I venture down that road in terms of my behavior, my personality, I'm fairly confident that there are a few people that would pull me up and say, hey, you're turning into this thing, you're becoming this thing. And I would expect it of anyone, actually, any one of you. Unfortunately, people that are prepared to be that honest, people that value the honesty, the integrity in a relationship like that, are few and far between nowadays. And I'm very fortunate to have a number of those people in my life. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a number of people in the community that would be prepared to be honest with me about that and say, hey, we see you doing this, we don't like that, or we think you should be aware that this or that, or whatever. So I feel very fortunate in that regard. It makes me feel actually almost sorry for the politicians, because they've gone beyond that. I don't know if they ever had that luxury. The luxury of people being prepared to be honest with them and give them some guidance and some direction. But then again as well, I suppose that also is only effective if the person receiving that input is prepared to take it. Take it constructively, take it from the perspective of the other people that are watching from the outside, and be reflective. Reflect upon it and decide what it is that you want to be. What sort of life experience do you actually want to construct? Do you want to have all the trappings, all the material trappings of life? Or do you want to be able to enjoy some of this time, nature, life, whatever, exposure to all these things, these different things, without the drama, without the politics, without the nonsense. I suppose that's only a question that one can answer individually, of course. Those of you that know me well, not peripherally, I think would agree that I don't really have too much in the way of aspirations when it comes to all the material trappings. You know, the Ferrari in the driveway. I've made a lot of money, I've lost a lot of money, I've driven very nice cars, I've driven very fast cars. I've done a lot of stuff, and I'm grateful for having had the opportunity. And it's interesting that, you know, that opportunity has allowed me to get to this point where I see life the way I see it. And again, it doesn't make it right. It only makes it what it is. It only makes it my experience. My life experience is entirely my own. And I've always had this approach that if anything that I do or experience or come out with or share with anyone, if any of that can make an impact on someone that they can then reflect upon and use in any way to change their life experience for the better, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a fairly, if I do say myself, it's a fairly commendable trait. It's I see it as being a useful way to look at things. And it brings me to thinking about the way people interact with other people and the way they discuss one another and the way they discuss people they don't know. And I've been considering talking about this, doing an in-depth video on it with some specifics, but the specifics are, I guess, not really relevant. I think if any of those people that have been involved in any of this stuff recognize any of this in their behavior, in their own behavior, if they recognize any of what I'm probably about to describe, either as being their own behavior, if you said it and you watch this, well, you said it, not me. But if anyone recognizes this type of behavior, whether it's in themselves or in other people, that is what it is. And if you can reflect upon it and use it to make you better, so that tomorrow you wake up and you're a better version of you, then it's worthwhile mentioning. So I was reflecting upon this for the last few weeks, where we had an interaction where somebody claimed that I had done something. I denied having done it. I, in fact, denied any knowledge of any of it. And that was honest at the time. It was just the person had assumed I had done something, and they had done so erroneously. They were essentially accusing me of having done something that I didn't do. When I pointed it out to them, they were still in disbelief. They stuck to their belief about the fact that it was me. Later the next day, I proved to them conclusively that it could not have been me, that it was not me that did that, and that they had my identity mistaken with someone else. The specifics are not relevant. What is relevant, however, and when the recognition was made, it was the person apologized, and they were, accepting of the fact that they had made a mistake. And for me, there's, what's to pursue beyond that? It means nothing more than that now the person has got the right information. But it did strike me as strange that the story that I was being told had obviously been related to many people in the community over a long period of time. And this is years we're talking about. And I wondered what, in fact, how that had contributed to any reputation that I might have had, or, negatively or positively, quite likely negatively, because of the type of thing it was related to. But it made me wonder about what it is that people say and do without the knowledge, without proper, honest knowledge, without direct involvement. And I guess maybe we have all been guilty of that to some extent in our lives. And some more than others. Some people make a sport out of it. Seems like drama's a commodity, But it got me thinking to just how detrimental that can be in terms of creating a false picture for others out there that don't know you. And I don't like that idea that people should be walking around telling other people that don't know me, they should be telling them things. Because often those people that listen to those things often don't have the gumption to come along and say, hey, this guy said that about you. Did you do that? I think you're an asshole. And here's the reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because of this, I think you are that. See, often people don't have the gumption, they don't have the self-honesty for a start to pursue that in any way meaningful. But they will often perpetuate the story, the rumor, because of the reason for the perpetuation of that is, I guess, it's just easier to chalk it up to human nature in general. The specifics are not really important. But it got me again thinking when I heard a story the other day about someone at the voting station. It got me thinking about that. I heard someone, again, it's third-hand information, but I heard someone I heard a story about someone talking to some people that were there, and my name came up, and I was an asshole for whatever reason. I have an attitude for whatever reason. But again, this comes from a person that actually doesn't know me. And, there were stupid comments made about how he walks around with a gun on his hip. And, well, to you, if you made that comment, where the hell would you have me walk around with it attached? You want me to put it in the safe? Idiot. Don't be an idiot. So, really, just don't talk about things you don't know about. Anyway, the point is this. Whoever it was talking about somebody that they actually don't know. And there's a strong likelihood that that person has never met me or had any discussion about anything with me. So that old story of, that old adage about take it whence it comes, take it from where it comes, from where, take it whence it comes. That is relevant, very relevant. And I would suggest that if anybody tells you anything about me, or anybody else for that matter that you don't know, I would encourage you to put your hand up and stop them and say, listen, does it concern me? What you're going to tell me, does it concern me? Does it affect me in some negative or positive way? Is it relevant? And stop saying things, or stop that person saying things about people that is of no relevance and has no factual basis. Stop that. And if you are doing that, stop it. And I've mentioned this before in a number of these things. You know, if people have, there's an open invitation basically. If you have a problem with me, come along and sit down, we'll drink coffee. I might give you the cheap coffee. No, I won't. But sit down and at least have the gumption to talk about it and discuss honestly and own some of what it is that you are putting out there without proof. I think that's very important. So know this, it's an open invitation. Doesn't matter what time, day, night, phone me, get hold of me and say, hey, we need to talk. You may be surprised. I may be surprised. Anyway, it's worth considering because I think it's a fairly important thing. You're not going to get out of this life with a bit of a free pass by, you know, getting to the end of your road and not regretting anything. And I don't think it would be good that you regret saying things about people you don't know. Having said that, maybe if you do say things about people you don't know, maybe you will get out of this life without any regret. Maybe that's just your nature. Maybe that's in your makeup. Maybe that's your lucky free pass. Let's talk about regret for a while. I can tell you out of experience, out of personal experience, I've definitely experienced a degree of regret in my life with, you know, a number of things. Most of them are because of things I did not do and didn't say, not because of things I did say. Although there should probably be one or two. But a couple of years ago, nearly going on 3 years ago now, I had a little experience where there was a moment where there was a great deal of regret. It was a time of sort of uncertainty. There was a chance of leaving the planet. It wasn't the only time in my life, but it was certainly the most poignant. And the one thing that I've taken away from that is this desire to not be regretful when I finally do leave the planet. And I would urge you all to consider being in a way that when you end up in that situation, that you don't have those regrets. Because I can tell you from personal experience, how would one describe it? It's the most unsettling feeling. That feeling of regret. All the other stuff really pales into insignificance. All the bad stuff and the good stuff and all of that stuff kind of takes a back seat, and you definitely start wondering about what it is the hell you were thinking at the time, because you didn't do a thing. You didn't say something, you didn't do something, you didn't take the opportunity. You just didn't. And it applies not only to you, but it applies to other people as well. In that time, in the interim, we have lost people, lost them. They've died. They died, and yeah, we didn't lose them. We didn't forget where we put them. People have died, and there's also that feeling of regret of having not made the effort to do something with those people. So it's a double-edged sword. You're going to feel it one way or the other. So I would suggest to you that you take the time, put the energy into being brutally honest with yourself. Be brutally honest with the people that are around you. Put the energy into making the effort. And do everything you can to not be regretful when that time comes. And I suppose somehow this is woven into, and I'm waffling here, of course, about a variety of things, but it all sort of weaves together into the whole thing where I was talking just now about relationships and people and in the municipality and the politicians and all of that, and all of the interpersonal relationships in the community, and the way people get on or don't get on, or assume things, or do or don't do things. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. The relationship thing in the community is affected. You know, what I was talking about just now, about people talking out of turn, spreading rumors, saying things that are not true, making statements that make people assume things about people they don't know. All of those things have a long-reaching and long-acting effect. They have a detrimental effect, I think, the likes of which you maybe don't consider fully, or certainly those people that make those statements don't consider fully. There's not much you can do about it other than act in a way that makes people question those things when they hear them. I suppose that's really the best way to counter any of it. Don't talk too much, and I know I do talk a lot. I tend to think out loud, I suppose. Some people find that aggravating. Is what it is. If it aggravates you, well, block one ear. Hear half as much. But I think it's important to consider those few things, and especially the long-reaching effects within the community, and what it is that we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, what we, I say we, I'm talking about the people that are involved, the people that are actively involved in, you know, participating in the community in whichever way they are able to. Don't undermine that because of your aspirations or your ego, or because your feelings are hurt by some stupidity that you didn't have the honesty to stand up and be vocal about. Like the guy who made the stupid comment about, you know, he walks around with a gun on. He said, well, guy, you've got a problem with that, come and talk to me about it. I'll explain to you some things that maybe you don't know. And if you have a problem about it, then that's fine. Keep it to yourself. Unless you can make some constructive thing come out of complaining about it to other people. Anyway. Let's talk a little bit about the situation with the municipality and the political influence, and let's talk about the general state of affairs, the way I see it in the municipality, in that that I don't even know what to call it anymore. That company of people There is a general distrust, I think, that exists between the community and the municipality and the political influencing that goes on there. Yet people still support it. People still keep on paying rates. And again, I'm not suggesting here, this is not some video to stir up the masses. We're not having a revolution here. I'm not telling you to not go and pay your rates. I'm just saying that you need to observe the fact that as unhappy as people are, as displeased as they are with not having the services that they pay for, they continue paying. And I find that very interesting. I find that as proof of the very effective nature of the programming that has gone on for the last many decades. You pay or we cut your electric off. And if you don't pay, you don't need your electric, that's fine, we'll cut something else off. We'll do something. We'll hold an axe over your head in some fashion to coerce you into paying, even though you know you're not going to get the service that you are paying for. You must just accept it. What is it that makes people accept that? What is it that makes people want to just go with the flow, not make waves, to tolerate bad behavior or bad choices or discrimination or corruption? What is it that makes people go with that? It's a little confusing. Yes, it's human nature, but the nature has been programmed into people, and the outcome is not going to be any different if we continue behaving in the way that we are. And I say we because I'm probably apathetic in some fashion as well, although I'm trying to be proactive in certain ways. I see the lack of service delivery from the municipality. I see the unlikelihood of it ever improving in the short term, definitely, because the manner in which everything is managed is the same. It doesn't change. And how can you expect anything to change if you manage it with the same tools that you broke it with? And it has been broken. It makes me wonder, though, that breaking the thing that was working, why is it tolerated? Is it because you've been trained to not want to offend people because of the whatever reason, the multitude of reasons that's been laid before you for why you should not offend someone or why you should be politically correct? How's that working for you? How is that helping you be better? How is that keeping you from being anything other than just another number, just another robot? How's it keeping you from being just another little battery for the matrix? I don't think it is. But it probably would do you well to think about it and decide on being more proactive, being more involved, certainly in the community. Be more, participate more, be present. Don't go and hide your brain away because it's the end of the day and you must drink beer or you must go to work or you must do this or you must, all these things that you must do. You must go and hide your face behind a TV on DSTV or YouTube or one of these things. Yeah. Many things to think about here. One of the reasons this ends up as, or these videos often, or these things that I record often end up as an extended ramble, is because it's a multifaceted problem. It's a very convoluted, multifaceted issue or set of issues. And I guess in a in a big way, I'm trying to make sense of it myself, just as you are, I guess. And I suppose to some extent this is the way I make some sense of it. But it also causes me a great deal of frustration, because I am all too well aware of the fact that many people don't, in fact, pour any attention into this stuff. They would rather hide behind their TVs or behind a beer or whatever drama they choose, whatever distraction they choose. The situation, getting back to the situation with the municipality, is not improving. It's not going to improve. Everything is broken to a point where the only work that's being done is to literally put fires out, and even that is delayed and ineffective for the most part. So I've spoken at length in the past about becoming more self-sufficient, becoming prepared to deal with the eventuality of no power, no water, no refuse collection. It was quite funny. Jonty the other day made the point about everyone can be thankful that there isn't a sewage system that runs through the plots here, that everything's on septic tanks, or the majority of stuff is on septic tanks and soak pits and French drains. And it's amusing because it's true. Can you imagine if there was a sewage system in this area and the state in which you would find it, with the lack of maintenance? If it was treated in the same way that the water supply is, or the electrical infrastructure is treated, or the roads, can you imagine what the sewage would be like? You'd be driving through it, you'd be up to your knees in it. I find the irony amusing. So be thankful for things like that. Be thankful that you don't have a sewage system. And if they suggest that we should put one in the plot area, do everything you can do to stop it initially, because who's going to maintain it? Who's going to fix it? When you look at the condition of the electrical infrastructure in the area, when you look at the condition of the substation, the grass, how it's all overgrown, all of that stuff, how when you look at all of that and the lack of maintenance and the lack of care for the condition of it, when you look at that, there's no avoiding the fact that it's all broken and it's going to get worse. When you look at the electrical infrastructure in the area here, and you look at simple things like the way that the connections are, the links, the fuses, the links and all of that they're bridged because they don't have spares to replace them with. It's laughable. In a way, it's laughable. It's a patchwork quilt, a patched situation. You've got to sort of appreciate the fact that the people that are doing the work to try and keep it going are trying to do that, but that they don't have the support of those above them, or they don't have the support of the people in the area, and that all the people in the area are prepared to do, and yes, I'm generalizing, that they are only prepared to moan. When you consider that again leads back to this thing of getting to a point at one point in life where you will regret the choices you've made. You will regret the things that you didn't do. You'll regret not reporting the street light or the whatever it is. So there are many things to ponder here, and like I said, it's a very multifaceted problem, and I suppose at the moment I'm really talking in a nebulous sense, in a very roundabout way about everything and how broken it is. I suppose the message at the end of all of this really comes down to, what is it that you want in the area, or just out of life? What do you want out of life? What type of a life do you want? Not only for you, but if you've got kids, what type of a life do you want for your kids? Are you doing something that is going to provide some reasonable facsimile of that idea that you have, that you've constructed? Do you even have a plan? Do you actually have an idea of what it is that you want, or are you kind of going with the flow? We're just floating downstream, you know? Is it that? Because, and I can understand that it is that, because, yeah, lots of stuff, lots of overwhelm with all manner of things. But is it that, or are you actively participating in a way that is going to give you some outcome that you desire? As I said, not only for you, but for children, for the people around you. And that's a thing to understand as well. The people around you that live around you in this community are also affected by the same things that you are affected by. And you are affected by the things that affect them. And if you see things not going the way you want, ask yourself, are they doing something about it? Number one, are you doing something about it? But are they doing something about it to make it better? You know, I've spoken often at the meetings about people going and pulling their neighbors into the whole thing and getting them to come along to the next meeting and participate, you know. I think people don't really give enough cognizance to that what affects their neighbors affects them, and vice versa. You know, simple thing. We're heading towards fire season. I'm sitting here and I'm smelling a felt fire up the road here, because someone has been silly enough to go and light a fire for whatever reason. They probably thought it was justified at the time, but they probably didn't think to the consequence, or far enough to reach an idea of the consequence of what they were doing. But the point is this, that those people that participate in the community have access to a fire truck and a fire tender. That has come about because people want that facility, or there's a handful of us that think it's important because the existing infrastructure, well, the non-existent infrastructure, yeah, when you phone the fire department, they'll come along, but they'll come along with a truck that doesn't work, or doesn't have water in it, or can't be operated, or they don't have equipment. You know, we've seen that how many times. Point is that if you participate, you have other people that are interested enough to help you, to look out for you when you can't look out for yourself. They have some of the same values. We're not all the same, obviously. And this gets back to the thing I was talking about right in the beginning, about people being forced to like each other. We don't need to do that. But it's effective, especially in the time in which we live and the place in which we live. I think it's an effective strategy to be part of the community that is prepared to at least pull together when bad things are happening, or tough times begin. Let me leave you with that. I think that that's the really is the salient point in all of this. I think that that's one of my primary desires in all of this stuff that I do, is wanting to get people to realize that working together is far more effective than trying to be on their own. When the chips are down, that is. Be on your own, cool. Do your own thing, great. Live and let live, that's groovy. But when it gets tough, who then? Who comes along to save your bacon or stop it from burning? Who comes along then to help just a bit, to make it a little bit easier? Often that helping doesn't cost, or rather, let's put it this way, it costs a lot less than the consequence of not helping, or everybody not helping. So let me leave you with that. I think it's something worthwhile to think about, and I would encourage you to get in contact with me or any of the other people that are positioned in the community to direct you, to get you onto one of the groups, to guide you in the right direction. One last thing on the municipal or political front, I'm having a discussion next week with the head of the department, and we'll hopefully have something positive to report from that. I have no doubt it'll be an interesting discussion. I don't hold out a great deal of hope in terms of what's possible in the short term because of the situation that exists currently. But if I can use that opportunity to forward the relationship between the community and oh look, it's still recording. If I can use that to forward that, then that'll be something positive. Enough waffling.